I'll turn the mic on. How's that? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Infrastructure and Projects Committee meeting. First of all, before I get into it, we'll open our proceedings today with a prayer. Eternal God, source of all wisdom, as we gather here today to serve our community, we ask of your guidance. Grant us with your foresight to make wise decisions, the compassion to understand the needs of our people, and the courage to act with integrity. May our work together enhance the well-being of our district. Amen. We'll welcome your worship, councillors, Chair Corin, CE Corin I should say, Hamish, and other devoted staff. First of all, is there any apologies, please? Is there any public forum? No other notices that haven't been notified for this agenda? We're looking good. Right. Now, any declarations of conflict in relationship to today's meeting? Great. Right, we'll just quickly confirm the meeting of the minutes held on the 15th of April. So page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, and page 7. Moved by Councillor Johns and seconded by Mayor Scott. Thank you. Right. All those in favour, please. Aye. Carried. Does she want to go now? Right. We've had a request from the floor that Jo comes up first, as she's got some work to carry on. So we're just going out of order a little bit to help everyone. Thank you, Jo. The floor is yours. So if you move to your page 29 on your report, you'll see it. Thank you, Jo.
Thank you there, Wallace. Now, I take the report as read, but I would like to highlight the Woodville and Paitua issues. I thought I'd put something in there that'll make you want to talk about it. Ikitahuna does not have a mention because we don't have any issue whatsoever at Ikitahuna with the bloke that lives across the road and his dog. So if anyone goes anywhere near it, the dog goes off. He rings Russell, Russell rings me, and the police turned up 5 minutes later. So we haven't had any issue there since he moved in. I'm not looking after them. So with that, is there any questions around the report?
Councillor Johns.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, I noticed there are a couple of photos showing cars that have been blocked in by staff, presumably. Have those people that have been responsible for damaging the gates and dumping illegally been fined?
That's a good question. I have reported, everything that's gone on has been reported to police. From there, I mean, yeah, one of them's been out of registration a year and a half or so there was no proving who was in possession of that vehicle, I believe. Yeah, and the other one, I don't know, I don't get feedback on it afterwards, but yes, they have been reported. And you can't prove that they were the ones that have damaged anything because, yeah.
So on both occasions, was it a staff officer that caught them there and parked behind them so they couldn't get out?
Yes, the first one was our hook truck driver when he was going to change the rubbish bin for an empty bin ready to open in 2 days' time. And the other one was myself.
Did you phone the police?
Yes, you have to do an online report. You have to do an online report. They don't turn up there and then. It's not really warranted for 111.
Yeah, I think we've got to remember here, our staff aren't policemen. And I've been in a situation where, to trap somebody wasn't my wisest decision. But anyhow, yeah, great work there, what you've done. It's the times we live in. I'll ask one question on the gates. Are we changing up the design of the gates? Because I think the only way we can slow them down is maybe electrify them or solid.
That then just drives them to cut the fence. The less we push back, the less damage we're getting.
Yes, good point. Mayor Scott.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Yes, I think you were right. That certainly caught people's attention, the photos. And I suppose it does quite frequently because similar-ish photos, particularly of damage to gates in our transfer stations, has been a bit of a common thing since I've been around the table. Totally appreciate it can be hard to prove who damaged it, so you'll probably know where my question's going. I've asked quite a few times about the possibility of cameras, and I know that we have some challenges sometimes with power and with other bits, but there are other solutions for that. Is there still any investigation or progress on getting cameras? Because people that are damaging this property is costing ratepayers money, and I would like to see them caught and dealt with.
Yeah. Well, the scale of economics. Woodville, take Woodville for example. The scale of economics. The gate is cut. They generally enter that way. That's the only way they're entering now. They're not cutting the lock because we've got a cut-proof lock and chain. If we don't do anything about the gate, they continue to go in and out of the tradies' entrance, so to speak, and they don't do any further damage to it. It doesn't mean that it's okay, but if we put cameras in, they're up on 6-metre poles at Paitura and they got stolen. So that's costing the ratepayer as well. So it's a double-ended sword. I think the answer is to invest in a new site to consolidate. Yeah.
Councillor Peter.
Would the reason that it's the Woodville site particularly is being damaged in this way have anything to do with the fact that it's not open very often?
No, well, because Paitua is open more often and it's having the same thing. In fact, that photo that I got of them was an hour and a half after it had closed. And it was actually why I'd gone for a drive up there.
It's more interesting, did they, not holding court here, but was that person a resident of Woodville or did they offload from somewhere else?
No, they weren't locals. They had actually come up on a surveillance camera earlier with Smart when we had one hidden of Smart's, and they were there getting in the gate because there was actually 3 of them. So it was dead obvious that I saw as soon as they walked up the hill they were the same people. So I did ask them to not come back again, that they're not, welcome there. It's after hours, blah, 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 and reported it.
Yeah, that's where I was coming from. So we've got to be careful out there blaming Woodville people, I think 90% of Woodville, 99.9% of Woodville people are probably good. It's always that 0.01%, isn't it? They cost us so much money.
Sorry, that was Paitura, and they weren't Paitura locals.
I know, and actually to be fair to all our district, it's always that 0.1% that costs us, heaps. Did you have your... No? Alison.
Thanks, Chair. Steve. Kia ora, Joe. Thank you for this report. Everyone's kind of touched on this, But do we know if the break-ins and violations are being committed by repeat offenders, or are they mostly isolated incidents?
They have been, that's a good question, but they have actually been identified as the serial offenders, and it seems that they crossing over the same Paitoa and Woodville. Yep.
Oh.
Because the gate entry and everything's the same MO, it's just that they can't cut the lock at Woodville.
Just to follow up, if that's okay. And has any data been collected about common trends and or times where these incidents have occurred? Thanks.
Due to the low opening hours, we have time frames, but not necessarily times. But that's why it does seem, when Paitoa closes on a Friday, it's high risk that Friday night. Saturday morning's pretty much a given that somebody's been there. But I also knew after Sunday as well. That's why after closing Sunday on dusk, I just went for a little drive up the hill, and sure enough, they were there.
Yes, I concur with that. Most of these offenders are possums. They only work at night. Anyway, we won't get into that. But going back to point 5, on a positive note, I see, well, it's a negative, but a little bit of a positive. April, 1.67 tonnes diverted to landfill. Do you think your education stuff's working, or the people are still not getting it through? Or is there anything we can do as a council to try and help you? Because you're doing a great job, but if we can get more stuff out of that landfill, we're going to recycle it, we're going to be better off. Is there anything we can do to help you?
Thanks for the question. Well, yes and no. So I would like to organise a tour of the material recovery facility for elected members and senior leadership to be an eye-opener of what actually happens with it. We do have a series of videos from the Wasted crew that can be shared, which I've reached out to comms about to see if we can get some of them shared like on a regular basis. Yeah, it's education, because yeah, there is a lot of confusion out there, but there is also one set of standards that were nationwide adoption of standard recycling throughout the country. So now that it's all one set of rules, it is confusing, but it's actually, you can simplify it. So it's all about education, and we've got to touch people widely. So yeah, and I think it might start with taking you guys through the material recovery facility to show you what happens, so that it can go from there. And it might teach you guys too.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Joe, because you imagine if the whole district makes this paradigm shift, you know, well, whatever happens in the future, hopefully the groundwork we've done are going to make it easier for all ratepayers. Councillor Aaron.
Thank you, Chair Steve. At the bottom of that graph, I thought that was really interesting, because it's about half the amount of contamination as in the past year. So I think, you know, like, you guys are doing a great job, and it's slowly but surely you're bringing it down, which is great.
I must admit the December figures for glass is very high. We must be a social lot. Right, is there any further questions for Joe, please? You happy, Joe? Nothing further?
Yeah, I got more out of you than last time.
Good. We want this. All right, no further questions for Joe. We'll let you head back into the headwind. Thank you. What we're going to do now then is we're going to get Dan and Andrew up. So, starting, yeah, come forth, men, after your display at the awards. Look very dapping there, men. You kept the standard up. Good on you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'll start off here by providing a bit of an overview of what's been going on at the Alliance. So, as mentioned, we went to the awards ceremony at the Apōpō conference, and were successful with achieving the Community Category Award for the Land Stability Project. We did return the Kamata Otarangi for the Supreme Award, which was picked up by Tauranga City Council and GHD, but yeah, still successful the same with the award we picked up, and it's a great achievement for everyone involved, including our partners being Ministry of Social Development and Horizons Regional Council for the support for that project. And we are also finalists for the International Federation for Municipal Engineering Awards, which Opopo put the Route 52 project forward for that. So Murray Pugh, the Chief Executive for Opopo, is over there as we speak, representing us for that. So we'll hopefully have some news on how we went in the next couple of days. In regards to our renewal program for the season, so we have delivered the renewal program, although we did have some challenges throughout the season, mainly with the weather, so it was a bit later than expected, but have had a successful season with the renewal projects, and so now the focus is on planning for next season. So currently the team are undertaking surveys and testing work so that we can confirm treatments for next year's program, so that we obviously on the right track when we get into next year. So on that note, with us coming into winter, the team are currently focusing on winter maintenance work, so the increase in drainage activity with the targeted funds for resilience, and a bit of work that we're doing on unsealed roads, given that a lot of the customer requests we're getting through at the moment are for unsealed roads, so got a bit of focus on there, as well as the weather event cleanup from the events that we had from the November, February and recent event in April. Another strong focus that we're looking at the moment is around our communication with the public for our customer request management. So this was raised at the recent Risk and Assurance Committee, but I thought we'd raise it here as well, that we're just doing a bit of work in how we respond to the customer requests, and looking at a more formal way of doing it, whether it's through email and so on, just so we can be more formative and consistent with how we're responding to those. So we actually have a meeting on Friday with the customer services team to just go through where we're currently sitting, to make sure we're in a good space there and not missing anything. With Cyclone Gabrielle, so there's still a lot of work happening in that space, and we are getting to the end of the financial year, so it is likely that there is going to be some remaining work that's going to carry over into next financial year, but very, very limited amount. So we've got a meeting tomorrow actually just to work through that and see what that looks like from a financial point of view, but there's not much left to go, so it's just a case of tidying up the basically sites that we're currently progressing with at the moment, such as the likes of Riverdale Road. There's a bit of work happening out on River Road and Route 52 as well, so just progressing through that. And that's all I've got, so I'll hand it over to Andrew.
Is there any questions before we're going to come back to it? I've got a couple of questions. Right. On the maintenance and the road, this delivery, I saw in here NZTA for funding before we can commence work. Have you got that yet on 3.4, page 14?
So update on we're working on, we've got 3 new events that we've processed through this financial year, which is the October storm event and February storm event. Those 2 have had funding approved for them, and that was largely the tree clearance work for dangerous trees. So that work we essentially got approval late last month, and the work will start to clear up some of that final damage this month. And literally yesterday, I submitted the application for the April storm event. That application was $2 million, with $1 million of that being high complexity repairs, dropouts, and the likes.
So is that a yes?
It's a partial yes. So of the 3 events, 2 approved, 1 submitted yesterday.
Well, that's better than none. Okay, so the other thing, just below that paragraph, I see you've excelled with 242 kilometres of grading, and you're allowed for 200 kilometres. I know you've told me how many kilometres of unsealed road do we have in the district that you grade? I'm just trying to work that out as a percentage of what you've graded.
So network unsealed network is about 700, just 750 kilometres.
So you've done about 30%. Oh, okay. I'll come back and I'll let you carry on. Chris, sorry. Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Chair Steve. Just a question on the grading. When I've had a number of comments from people all around the district, we did the meeting with everyone, and a lot of rural people brought up the fact that when the grading is done, the water tables are filled with a lot of stuff that comes off the roads, and then they're left to basically go into drains and block things up. Is there anything stuff being done about that, or training, or comments going back to the graders about doing that?
I can start with the answer and then Andrew can elaborate if I miss anything. But regards to the grading, yeah, so we're currently introducing basically an additional activity with our maintenance grading, which is flanking. So it's actually pulling that material back onto the road because a lot of that material is metal that's come off the road, and so not only is it blocking the drain, but it's also taking metal off the road, which we then have to go and remetal. So yeah, so introducing flanking, which is pulling it back on. It may, in some cases, when the graders do that, the perception sometimes can be like it does pull a bit of vegetation onto the road as well, so it's not as aesthetically pleasing to start with, but it is from a functionality point of view, yeah, better solution. So basically what the activity has been for maintenance grading is 2 passes, so you do pay 2 passes, which then creates that situation, so pulling that additional activity so we can solve that.
Yeah, just supplementary on that. The comments that came in were also sort of led to where the grading was done, where it actually took it below the water tables, basically formed a wall. So the water tables weren't performing at all if they existed. So a lot of the time the road became a pool. So that was just a comment that was coming through in regards to that as well.
Can I just say there, on this page 14, below that paragraph, it says, in my mind, they're only 50 k's behind the grader. You've got your wheel excavator doing the job for them, which makes logic. The way I read that, I thought that's the way I would do it too. So did you see that, Chris? It's in our report. So, you know, good stuff there. They're basically, the wheel guys are going around picking all that stuff up. And they're 50 k's behind. But hey, at least they're behind, they're not in front.
Yeah, just to elaborate on that, I mean, there's obviously a lot of different kind of situations with unsure roads where the water table is quite minimal, and so the grader can do a lot, can do the work by pulling on. But there's obviously also cases as well where the water table's greater depth and so on, and is actually blocked up through silt and vegetation, which is what you don't want the grader to pull on. So that's where we've also got the wheel excavator going around to clear that up as well. So yep, tackling it from both sides with that.
I'll ask another question, and that's to do with the April 56, this is on the CRMs, right? 56 versus in March 199. So do you think that's just probably to do with the weather? Which is good.
Short answer is yes.
Pardon?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And I see just, no one's brought up the Elfridham Bridge. Are you going to talk about? Good, that one's a good one. I'll let you carry on, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so the Elfridham Bridge, we are making steady progress in terms of getting the information back from the testing that we've progressing. So following the community meeting, we had a pretty good community meeting out there where we probably gained some valuable information from the community about the use of the bridge. The detour routes of Par Valley Road, we actually found out that is the preferred primary route for heavy traffic. So we're just working towards getting a bit of improvement work done there to address the one issue, which is one corner where 2 trucks, if they pass each other, they can potentially push them off the road. So yeah, it was a very good meeting, and I think we took a lot of valuable information away from it. Progressive to that, we have done the additional core sampling on the bridge, and we literally got the results back last night. Tentatively, we haven't got the final report, and haven't got the engineering reports, but they are looking positive. I suspect it will be a rated bridge, but from what the numbers look like, and I say this is very preliminary, it's looking like we may be open it to light trucks, which is great in the sense that we can reopen it. It does lead us to the point of now we need to make a decision about what that looks like for the future going forward. If the bridge was for lack of a better word, stuffed, it's a very easy decision. Now we need to decide whether we invest money in a aged infrastructure and how much we invest in it, because there will be some repairs potentially needed with the wing wall abutments pressing up against the bridge. That is potentially leading to accelerated deterioration. So, yeah, I suppose good news, but it's like preliminary results, so I can't quote the numbers yet. But
Mayor Scott.
Thanks very much, Chair Steve. Thanks for the update on that, for all of the time and work that the Alliance has put into it, including the community meeting. It was a very good, informative meeting. That is potentially encouraging, so I'm being careful how I say it as well, because there are, a number of community members who are heavily impacted, as your report well covers. What I'm curious to know, because the community are keen to have a solution as soon as they can, when do you think that information will be finalised? Appreciate it only came through last night, so it requires a bit more work, but what is your timescale on getting confirmation as to how we can proceed, particularly with a reopen, and how quickly could that actually happen to lighter vehicles if the testing confirms that that would be safe?
so we had the structural engineer in the office last week. So they have drafted the general information that's required to produce the report. Essentially, he's just waiting on the numbers to plug the numbers in. We have the numbers now, so he is very aware that we would need to get this out pretty quickly. I would like to think, what's today? By the end of the week, we should have a engineering report for the bridge. And depending on what the recommendations are for light trucks, it may need some physical works to actually enable that to happen. We're very conscious that if we just reopen the bridge with a sign saying no heavy trucks, people will use the bridge. There's a risk that people use the bridge anyway, so there is potentially some modification we need to do at the intersection there. But we're thinking we can move the concrete blocks to enable cars to get across. But I say, if the report may come back stating that we need to take the dead load off the bridge, which is the pavement layer that's been laid across it historically, that could take a little bit of time, 2 weeks to organise and get completed, because when you remove pavement off the bridge, you actually have to put weight on it to do that job. So that's the little bit of the dynamic we don't know yet in terms of the final requirement to reopen it. So the report should come back. Hope we'll get some guidance this week, and I will forward that out once I know that in an email, so people are aware of what the plan is. But we can move pretty rapidly on it, I'd suggest.
Thanks, Chair Steve, and no, thanks for that. And I know how seriously this is being taken by the team. Just that the request would be, particularly as a start for light vehicles and cars, to have some resolution or some access available as soon as possible. Certainly understand the risk of, if you open it up and put a sign, would that sign be followed? But when you're talking about the financial impact that is already on that community, there may be other ways of being able to do that potentially at peak time, whether that be traffic management or something else. I know all of that costs money, but potentially we may save a significant amount on the Bailey Bridge and the monthly rental that would come from that. I'm very cognizant of the fact that we will still have some financial decisions to make around that bridge, but I just wanted to emphasise the desire of speed for that community. Thank you.
Councillor Aaron.
Thank you, Chair Steve. Just a couple of things. I've been helping the Royal Delivery guy who goes over that bridge every day. I know it's early days, but he usually has a ute and can be a loaded trailer. I don't know, would there some sort of, like sort of weight limit there? And part two of that question is, like, what other bridges do we think, we've got ageing assets and infrastructure, just looking at the future with the LTP, how many others are we going to get, do you reckon? I know that's a big question. Sorry.
So, yes, just in regards to the weight limit, when we talk light vehicles, it's 4.5 tonne. So that's essentially a light vehicle with a trailer, light camper van side of things. When you move into the truck space, 4.5, a single truck is 4.5 tonne to, I believe, 21 tonne. And we are talking potentially 21 up to 21 tonne, but so until we get the report, we can't confirm that. Hence why light vehicles is likely. In regards to the broader bridges, yes, it is a very hot topic, and I do know it's been a hot topic for NLTP discussions for pretty much ever since I've been involved in them. With the, I suppose, the information we're developing, we have, the council has a gap in knowledge about the structural capacity of our bridges. Essentially, the engineering calculations to determine the weights of the bridges, given we're an amalgamation of multiple councils on after amalgamations, a lot of that information has been lost. So I'm aware that when the alliance started, there was Tom Dodd, one of the industry engineers, started compiling all the bridge information and was going into archives. He went up to CHB Council and pulled information for there to get actually bridge plans, but we don't have the engineering calculations to fully support loading as yet. And in order to put a loading limit on the bridge, we are required to have the basis for it. So it's a desktop exercise to do the calculations, and the NZTA bridge manual gives you the guidance for it. But given the amount of bridges we've got, there's a bit of work in that space. So we are bringing that probably as part of the NLTP discussion, as part of for the next NLTP program is actually starting that. Further to that is with the fuel crisis that's going on, the government is working on potentially increasing vehicle weight limits, which they're looking at HPMV routes, which is the sort of main roads around here, which we know can take that don't have structures that are impacted by it. But as soon as they increase the weight limits, even be it temporarily, we know there's a risk to our structures in the district if they start going off the approved route. And we believe there's probably heavy vehicles that are over the weight limits already using some of our structures. So it is a risk that council has, and we're very well aware of that. And this is the Alfredton Bridge and a couple of other ones that are near the end of life. We do have plans to do as the similar assessment what we've done for Alfredton. It's through we do 6 yearly principal inspection on bridges, and that's the cycle we'll be developing it over. But we've got a massive amount of bridges, so we're literally going through archives literally right now, trying to find as much information in terms of the engineering calculations and weight limits to help that conversation. But yes, it's very much an NLTP discussion that we're bringing.
So, Chris.
Thank you, Chair Steve. Firstly, thank you to you guys for getting out and communicating with the Alfredton community. They really appreciated it. Talking to a number of them afterwards, they've, felt informed and involved in a lot of the, stuff that's going on. So that has really helped them understand a lot more. Because first of all, when they first looked at it, it looked like it was just a closure for the hell of it. But looking into the detail and what you guys brought to them was really good. There's been a lot of comments, and I'll ask the question around the core samples being 150 mil core samples and stuff. Does that damage the integrity of the bridge at all? And I'm assuming it gets repaired and patched and plugged up, so it wouldn't be a factor. But can you confirm on that?
So when they do the core samples, they plan them to avoid the steel rebar rods in them, and essentially once they go through the bridge, the concrete gets caught out and then it gets backfilled with concrete. So essentially it retains the same integrity. So yeah, that doesn't, if not stronger. If not, yeah, it might be stronger concrete that goes back in. So.
It could be a Swiss cheese by the time I finish with it. Councillor Peter.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, no, thanks, Andrew. I'm aware of the work that Tom Dodd did some years ago assessing bridges, but one would imagine that a lot of the bridges are a standard type. You see them all over the country. And one would assume that an assessment could be done based on what's known about that standard type of bridge, which will simplify the whole process, even if you can't find the original documents relating to the actual bridge. Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah, so the standard assessment within the Intertown Bridge Manual is they lay out parameters for doing an assessment, so it is a desktop exercise. Essentially, they need to look at the plans, work out the engineering loading capacity of it, and then apply a standard formula, essentially for concrete capacity or steel of the time. And essentially that's what happened at the start of prior to the Route 52 project, when the Weber Road and Route 52, 63, 44 sections were assessed. From memory, there was about 12 bridges that were done then, and that ended up costing about $100,000 to get the information. So when you've got 12 bridges, and I think there's 450 bridges around the district, it is an actual planned program. It's not just on a whim type thing. We have asked for a cost from the engineers about what per bridge would be, and I do believe we need to progressively start improving that information, given what's happening with the loading capacity. So I would say bring it to the NLTP conversation on the 24th of June about what that looks like from a long-term plan, but it essentially becomes a special project that we need to approve from a funding point of view, because it will take a bit of money, but given the risks to the bridges of not having that information, from my opinion, it's money well spent. So, just yeah.
I guess it's not just the bridge; it's the abutments and how what sort of ground those abutments are on and so on that come into it. It's not just the actual bridge itself that needs to be assessed, I guess.
Councillor Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I think, as we pointed out, the primary damage that was caused to the bridge looked to be the abutments causing compression against the bridge. With the work that would need to be done to those, if we keep it open for light traffic, because that's still going to be a factor if there's any movement in the ground or any movement from vehicles going across, or heavier vehicles going across it. So would there still be a lot of works to do to sort the abutments first to keep it open before even reinstating or putting in a new bridge? Is that how it would sort of work?
Yes, I suppose I have asked the question about the cutting back the abutments away from the end of the bridge, and that's I suppose what we need advice from the engineer, because cutting them back may open more problems. So in the short term, it might be better to just leave it as is, because we're not going to be disturbing ground. From what I understand, it won't affect the light vehicles. It's the heavy traffic shock loading that happens when the concrete on concrete hits each other, and then it bow waves through the bridge. So, yeah.
Just while we're on that, bridges, going back to Peter's point, these bridges are all made at a certain time and so forth. Okay, the records are all got lost. No surprises there. But I remember quite clearly when Rakaitai went, we sat in this room and they told us it was a fault in the middle span. And there's 3 other bridges in New Zealand that have got the same because of the construction. So what I'm saying is that's what I think you're alluding to, Peter, with what you're talking about, these bridges. They must have a certain standard, right? And that's what we're alluding to. It's just this, because the other thing in the question I asked, and I think you said there's so many layers. You know how a bridge goes like that. You walk along that bit, but it's built. This is Efferton. It's Alfredton. It's built right up. And you said the weight of that layers and layers and layers of tar seal is how many ton? Just approximately. Because they just kept putting it on top, didn't they? That would be, in my mind, bad practice, yeah?
I can't quote the tonnage per se. I'll need some numbers on that, but it is a significant amount. I mean, it was in, from memory, it was in the like hundreds of 200-ton type space when we.
Because that would put more weight on that bridge all the time. So you're alluding to this idea now to get rid of that, lighten the bridge up, and then maybe repair. That's an option, I'm saying.
Yeah, lightening the bridge protects the structure.
Yeah.
The bridge has an under dead load. Most bridges have significant capacity. It's the dynamic loading of bridges when a vehicle rolls
fair
across
enough.
that causes the problem. Creates the potential. But yes, there is. Most of the bridges are relatively generic designs. When you look at one plan compared to another one around the other end of the district, they're pretty standardised designs. For example, Route 52, when it was a state highway, there'd be sort of a standard state highway design. So you're saying the same type of bridge, and there is. We can start, once we start developing the information, we can apply the principles of those bridges to other ones. There is like different loading capacities of different structures, and we do have paper-based information that supports that. That was at time of construction. What we don't know is the deterioration of those structures, hence Alfredton Bridge. Once it starts deteriorating, you get cracking, the design capacity may no longer be there. And in order to start posting bridges and putting weight limits and speed restrictions on them, we do need to have the supporting information. Otherwise, we'll have the freight industry coming down on us like a ton of bricks. But essentially, as part of the ML2B process, we are talking about the roading policy as well, which would cover things like bridges and what we would do in terms of weight limiting and bits and pieces. So, yeah, it's bigger than this meeting. It's bigger than probably just the next NLTP session as well. But it is something that we need as a council to make a decision on, because there's a lot of value in those bridges out there, and we need to address them. So.
Councillor Chris, I was trying to figure, give me the hand signal.
Cheers, Steve, thank you. Just a comment on the Alfredton Bridge situation. I've spent a lot of time talking to people, going around, and went around yesterday and met with a lot of the businesses, around. There's a lot of, out in Alfredton, they understand the impact to them directly. But in Eketahuna, there has been a significant drop in commerce coming through. So people coming into the pub, to the Foursquare, to PGG, everywhere like that. They're currently, there's been a couple of staff that were living at Alfredton that were working in Eketahuna that have left their jobs in Eketahuna because it's just not feasible for them to travel that distance extra. It doesn't sound like much, but when you start adding in fuel price and everything else, it starts to add up. And then deliveries out to the areas, they're adding an extra hour to their trip essentially for a delivery out to Alfredton, when you take into consideration heavier loads going out around the other way. And this is just ute and trailer loads, this isn't heavy trucks. So the impact for them is they're losing deliveries in the day, it's costing more, so the impact is quite a lot there. There's also the number of people that are now going directly to Masterton to buy goods. They're going to the likes of the rural, like PGG and Kinsley Agvet, they're going south, and they're now doing stuff and working directly with them, so we're losing a lot of work in town and a lot of business. So more of a comment that it is bigger than the simple design of fuel cost. It's quite a lot more complex. Yeah, so it's good to hear that it's moving, and I think the people will love to hear that, but it's just a comment on the financial point.
Yeah, thanks for that, because on the fuel thing, if you realise, since we last met, diesel's gone up 94% since we last said it. So I don't know how you guys are. I hope you hedged your fuel bill out there at Downers. You'd make money. Carry on.
So from our end, I believe that's it. If there's any other further questions.
Stand by.
Okay, so get three waters.
Yeah, who's doing the three waters?
Veto.
Right. Veto. Thank you, Mayor. let's hope the fuel doesn't go up any further because, yeah, that is astronomical. Have you got a fuel tank out there, by the way? You don't have that reservoir? Reserve, I should say. Might be something to look at in the future. Ryanair did it. They saved millions, billions. Right, carry on. Here we are. Great to see you here. We're going into waters now, people. And the floor is yours.
Morning, Chair. Morning, Mayor, Councillors. Yep, I'm Vito from the Three Waters team. Marcus Clifford sends his apologies. He's not feeling well. Marcus is our assets manager and the data man, if you can remember from our past two meetings. So I'll briefly start off by giving an overview of what's the water supply status for Tararua. We have stood down the Water Shortages Management Committee since our previous catch-up over here in February. Currently, all towns are get ready, no restriction status. The impounds at Woodville and Dennyworth are also near their maximum levels. The river levels are gradually creeping up with the increased rain as we enter the wet season. So in terms of water supply, I would say we are in a good space. With that, I'll move on to...
Sorry, Mescal.
Thanks very much, Chair Steve. Probably just on that, and thanks Vito for giving that explanation. But on this in particular, when we talk about moving into our wet season, just wondering if there's been, and I have seen some discussion, but some thought given to us potentially not moving into as wet a season as usual with the weather patterns that are being predicted. We don't necessarily know how significant that will be yet, but it could have the potential of being very, very significant. I saw an item in the Hawke's Bay today, only a few days ago, talking about Dannyburg having the driest period on record recently. So what I'm curious to know is that planning already going in when it comes to water resilience? We still have project work to do at the impound supply in Dannyworth, but I'm just keen to understand how we might be managing the potential risk of a very, very dry period if that eventuates.
Through you, Chair. Thanks, Scott. Mayor Scott. So for your concerns around the winter season potentially being very dry, then that actually relates to all the SOPs that we've had usually coming into summer, where how can we ensure our water resilience. So first off, I will reiterate that the impound levels at Dennyworth and Woodville are near their maximum levels. Secondly, our recent rehabilitation of Dennyworth Infiltration Gallery was also completed. So in a way, we can ensure that the conveyance of water from the Tamaki River to our impound can be maximized and ensured. We have also done a recent survey of our weir at Ikituana Payatua. They are still in good condition based on what we did before our recent summer, just to make sure the levels are correct. The weir is in good condition to hold the water level for our galleries. So that is also in place. And I would say that looking at all these different factors as a whole, together with some of the projects that I'll touch on later on in the report, I would say that we are in a good space if the winter do turn out to be very dry. Yeah.
Councillor Peter.
Thanks, Chair Steve. No, thanks, Peter. I notice on page 26 regarding the Woodville water intake pipeline that there's an issue there regarding it could be vulnerable to failure if apparently it's not aligned in the correct corridors. What's happening there, or what is the situation?
So the Woodville intake pipeline, that is the pipeline conveying water from our gallery towards the impound and the treatment plant. And as the report highlighted, there are certain sections where there are vulnerability in the pipeline. So what we have done since April, there was a section of the pipe that had a massive leak. So we've had Alliance Corporation to come in and help us repair the leak. So that accelerated our awareness about the vulnerabilities of the pipeworks. Since then, we have already had PDP to come in to walk the line and do a preliminary condition assessment and identify key areas for replacement and strengthening of the raw water pipeline. So the next steps going forward would be finalizing the details of which sections need to be replaced, the materials of the pipes, the size, all this taking into account the future growth strategy for Woodville, as well as the treatment capacity of the treatment plant. And then as a whole, we'll finalize what needs to be done, decide on the budget, and put in a plan to replace those key vulnerable areas of the pipeline.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
I'll proceed to section 4.2, which is the water projects going into Denver. So as a whole, there are two major projects happening in Denver. One would be the pre-treatment plant upgrade that is supported by Philtech. So putting in a clarifier system. The primary goal is to ensure that during turbid conditions at Tamaki River, we can still accept and treat that water and provide potable water for the township. Second works would be the treated water storage. So this is where we are putting in the second reservoir just beside our existing one. And that will actually double our water storage from 1 day to 2 days. And that has a lot of benefits. That not only increases our water storage resilience, but it gives us the opportunity to do strengthening works on the existing one, and also gives us the opportunity to look at our Denver impound in the future when we have the clarifier in place and two storage tanks online. So I'd like to use this opportunity to also highlight that for the Denver impound, it's been more than a year since we've had divers in to do a patch repair for us. Since then, the stormwater manhole where we are tracking the flows coming out of the area around the impound has been very, very stable, fluctuating between 1 liter per second, and that correlates with actually the amount of rainfall that we are receiving around the area. Yeah, so I'd like to stress that the condition of the Denver impound has been very stable, but by finishing the pre-treatment and the second water storage reservoir, that will give us the opportunity to look into the impound at a later stage. Yeah, without jeopardizing the resilience of water supply to Denver.
Can I just say that's good news. I'm pleased you've brought that, because that's the back question in everyone in Denver. So yeah, I'm very happy that you've put that forward. And like 100% on anything's got to be great. It's a good deal, right? Carry on, sir. Vita, it's all yours.
Thank you. I'll move on to Woodville Water, and that is actually similar to the recent update that I mentioned about treated water storage at Denver, because the PMO is supporting Three Waters by delivering the project. So we have awarded concrete structures to build a new reservoir at Denver. And in Woodville, we will be decommissioning our two existing reservoirs and putting in new ones instead. Right now, we have completed the preliminary design comments and feedback to concrete structures. For Woodville, we are actually looking, instead of building two separate reservoirs, concrete reservoirs, we are thinking of just building one big one. So that could potentially shorten the delivery time frame and also reduce on the project budgets. Yeah, but this is in the preliminary design phase, and as we go along the coming weeks, we will finalize the details, whether is it going to be one big reservoir or it's going to be two as per our original request. But we do see a lot of benefits if we move into the options of just having one big one.
Could I just ask a question that's, excuse the pun, it's like having all your ducks in one pond. So if it cracks or something happens to it during an earthquake, which we're prone for, if you had two, you might be able to keep one going, like rather than what happened in the past. Just a thought, yeah. But those discussions with your engineers and everyone else when planning will certainly give us good advice on that.
Yes, Chair. I think you pointed out a key concern, even from the operations side, because like you mentioned, if we have everything in one, then you essentially have all the risk of that failing and jeopardizing your water supply. So as a result, what we are also exploring is, could we have a partition in the big reservoir so that essentially it's two parts in one. Yeah, so that option is being deliberated right now. I'll move on to Pongaroa. So Pongaroa, we have engaged Y Comply, which is our compliance consultant, to come in and assist us with reviewing our level of service contract with Pongaroa Rural Water Supply Society. Now we are actually meeting the president from the Rural Water Supply team this afternoon, together with Y Comply out at Pongaroa Fire Station, and I'll use this chance to also show Y Comply the network, the treatment plant, so that they have a good idea of what they are reviewing. The intention of this review is actually to identify what are some of the regulatory demands that are coming up from Tamata ROI, as well as the Water Services Act framework. Secondly, it's also to ensure that the accountability is very clearly defined between TDC/YD Waters and the Rural Water Supply Society. So as a whole, that contract will also assist us with the transition from now to into YD Waters come July 27. So that's the intention of the review.
I'll just take and welcome, Sharon. One from Councillor Wards, please.
Thank you for your discretion, Chair Steve, on allowing me to make a comment, but ask a couple of questions, one of which you've answered. Thank you, Vito. This is great news. I'm very reassured to see that we're moving on, reviewing and establishing a really firm agreement with Rural Water Supply Society. This is it's not quite unique. There are a couple around New Zealand, but this is a very extensive network of water for our community out there. So I'm delighted and reassured that that's being acted on. My question you've partially answered, Vito, was the communication with the rural water supply people. Obviously you're meeting Tim this afternoon, so well done on that. But one of the reassurances we'd given that community was the comms and how working a lot more directly with you and the team. Has that improved over the last few months, and seems to be good induction and training and clarification going on the roles of the people out there? Are you able to make a comment on that, please?
Through you, Chair. Yes, you've identified that Pongara, it's quite a challenging scheme given its wide and extensive network. So just to touch on that, why comply? We see why comply coming into the picture and being very beneficial or helpful for our situation is because they have successfully done a few contract reviews for similar rural schemes around New Zealand, and hence we see that they will be bringing in a wealth of very relatable experience when drafting such contract for us in Pongara. The second one would be the comms. So we have already inducted two parties or two stakeholders. Yeah, one will be the colleagues from our Rural Water Supply Society so that they can access the plant and store certain key repair or parts within the plant location, so that shortens the downtime. Second would be FAMs. So they also have a key to our plant just to tap into water supply when required if there's an emergency. Yep. So both stakeholders have been inducted and have key access to the plant grounds, but not into the plant building. Yeah. So our recent incident, I think there was a fencing job that was done and the raw water pipeline was accidentally damaged. That incident, the comms was put out by the Rural Supply Society on Facebook, and then that was conveyed to us. We had a comms piece out on our Facebook as well. The overall comments was that the residents were very well informed, and the interruption was about 2 to 3 hours. It was brief, but the communications was there.
Could I just ask a quick one on that? Is it well marked out there? I know whenever we go digging, we're going to get a locator. I know you can't do it with water, or you can actually, but is it well signed, pipe?
That I'm not sure. Yeah.
Could be something to look at. Sharon?
Thanks for your discretion, Chair Steve. Good luck in having that signage because there's a lot of pipes out there. Can I just say though, Vito, to you and the team, that this is great news, what you've reported here. We've been bouncing this review of a contract and ensuring that that community is well supported in the transition that we have ahead of us. So well done. I also commend in the next paragraph, you've identified that you're going to get on with the raw water storage because that's been bounced around for a long time as well. FENS and all of those other people will be delighted to hear this news. So big ups to the team. So thank you from Pongara. I have a question on the next one too, but.
Yes, so for Pongara, the second paragraph, and that's on the 3-day raw water storage project. We're having a contractor head down tomorrow on site just to scope the site and put a quote to us for consideration. So that's ongoing. Akitio, similar to the raw water storage project for Pongara, we are doing a similar one for Akitio. I'm meeting Hugh and our contractor next Monday on site just to talk about three things. One would be finding a location for us to put in the new tanks, which Hugh is agreeable over the phone yesterday. Also, the remetalling of access tracks around the site, just really for safety of the operations team and our sampler, going in and out, taking samples and maintaining the treatment plants. The last one would be renewing the aging pipework between the treatment plant and the top set of treated water tanks out there. So all three parts, Hugh is aware and he's agreeable. So I'm keeping my hopes up for next Monday's site meeting. Yep.
Mayor Scott?
Thanks very much, Chair Steve. Mine's just a fairly quick comment, just to thank you for the work that has gone into this. I mean, these communities have had challenges over over quite a long time, and the frustration, rightly sometimes can come to the surface. Certainly have seen the focus going on to both Pongaroa and Akatio, which I'm delighted with for those communities, and also from a selfish level, and I can probably speak for Deputy Mayor Wards, it may make a much more comfortable early January meeting in Akatio. So thank you very much.
How many connections are there in Agatea that this new water supply will serve now? Your connection, because this going forward, we're going to be in this new arrangement with somebody. So how many connections all this upgrade will feed now?
I can't say with high certainty, but around 40 connections we have out at Akitio.
Yeah, because we've been trying to find that figure. So you're saying around 40?
What I can do is provide an update in the next report to say that this is the number.
Yes, that'd be great. That would be great. That's legal connections. Chelsea. Sharon, Chair Counts, Deputy Mayor Sharon.
Thank you, Chair Steve. I've been called lots of things, but not that one lately. Anyway, moving right along. I can only concur with Mayor Scott, and thank you, Mayor Scott, for saying that this is a huge progress for that community veto, and I can only endorse a huge thanks to the way the team have approached this. It's been many meetings of frustration, and but I think in recent times the ability for you and the team to work a lot closer with those individuals out there that have got their feet on the ground and are there when, you know, a tank needs tapping or something needs reporting. So really appreciate the progress that's being made, especially around the raw storage that will alleviate some of those huge big bumps into the future. So many thanks.
It was good to see that on Country Calendar actually on the weekend. Chris? No, but it's in the area. It's in our Taurua, our mighty Taurua. Right, carry on, Chris.
Thank you, Chair Steve. Just one question regards to connections that or places where Fens can get water from. Are they getting the standard connection to the so that they can just attach up with their lines and stuff? So are they standard fittings, or do they have to pump it?
Right now, out at Pongaroa, I think they might have to work around with their own setup. Likewise, for Akitio, we do have a standpipe at one of our new tanks that we put in. So that conversation was done between fans to make sure that the size actually fits what they have. So I think Akitio, we might be in a good space, but Pongaroa, not yet. I think definitely something to look into so that fans can access quickly during an emergency and just take what they need.
Yeah, and just supplementary to that. So one of the things that is sometimes communicated with local brigades, they might know about it, but if it's not known by comms then it will never get on for the tankers to go to. They would travel to Paeatua or further out to go and get water if they can't get a supply from a dam or river or somewhere else. So just a consideration to if we're fitting, especially even raw water or any of the connections that we could possibly get water from, that we get the standardised connections to the 70 mil connection.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that will be part of the raw water storage project at Pongaroa. Once we put in the raw water storage tanks, there will be a standpipe where they can access. Yeah. Just a final piece for Akitio. So tomorrow we are also meeting Peter Greatbatch and two of our locals on site, because we've formalized an agreement between us and the locals, just a bit more for their assistance when there is a major leak out there. because we do recognize that it probably takes more than an hour before we can get out there. And so tomorrow we'll actually walk the line with the locals, identify key isolation valves, and put it in writing that if a leak happens, notify us, let us know which valve you're going to isolate, and then us and the Alliance, we will make arrangements to come out and address the rectifications. But meanwhile, their assistants will stop the leakage and preserve the storage that we have out at Agadir. That's happening tomorrow.
This is fantastic news through you, Chair Steve, because having those locals on the ground, that it's not me, on that list, will save a lot of water. As you said, Vito, it's an area out there, and if we've got someone that's been trained on what to do, not to touch, what to touch, could certainly mitigate a huge loss of water. So, well done.
We'll get her some high vis and a fireman's outfit. Out she goes, head first. Right, carry on.
Thank you. I'll move on to section 4.3, which is wastewater. Starting with Dennyvert Wastewater, the solar farm, the project manager updated that all 880 solar panels are now on Pond 4. What's remaining is all the electrical cabling works. They estimate that it will take a few weeks and looking at end of July for full completion.
So on that, can I ask a question? So on that, that will be put back into the grid, obviously, as they said with their contract. And then will be, as what Peter Wimsett in the room here said, we'll be getting a reduction in power on the daily usage because we'll be getting a percentage of the full usage. So that's on stream by the end of July, by the looks of this. Well, that's a saving to our ratepayers. That's why we did it. Good. Carry on.
That is right. I'll move on to drawback removals. So up by the ponds, we actually had 3 old drawbacks that was generated when we did the pond desludging works a few years ago. So in summer, we actually tested the dryness of the drawbacks to ensure that it is up to spec for the landfill to receive. So that has commenced, and I'm happy to say that as of this morning, the final load of the drawbacks have been sent to Waipukurau landfill. So right now, what sits up there would be the existing 3 bundled areas, empty and ready for us to look into pond desludging works again in the future. On a similar thread, we did sludge dewatering trials at Dennyvert. The background is closer down to the plants. We actually have 4 geobags that are receiving sludge from our DEF treatment process. Unfortunately, they are coming near to their full capacity, estimated to be at maximum end of the year. So what we did was to engage our local contractor Environ, who is also installing a dewatering press at the Payatua wastewater upgrade. So it's a similar technology. So we essentially rented a smaller unit and trialed it out at Dennyvert. There are a few objectives to that trial. So first is to validate the dewatering technology, whether it works for Dennyvert. Second would be to send a sample of the dewatered sludge to Waipukurau landfill for the operators to try it out at their landfill to see what's the mixing regime out there. And coming out from the trial, the landfill manager was coming back to me saying that the dried sludge is very good. So there is, in fact, room for us to negotiate a lower tonnage rate if we were to send that kind of sludge up to Waipukurau landfill. And that ties in with the Payatua wastewater treatment plant that is gonna finish their works, because the deep water sludge coming out from Payatua will be similar in nature. So it's, in a way, it's giving the landfill a heads up on what's going to come. And if we can finalize on a cheaper tonnage rate, that will be a big win for us in terms of sludge disposal for the district.
Yeah, just while you're on that, I saw a great piece on a circular farm. So everything goes around and they do use all their sludge. They redo it again, but it was in Holland. But hopefully that technology will filter down through here, because we are probably losing money where we could be actually, as you say, just making inroads to reducing and utilising it, you know. Carry on. Are we all right, or do you want to have a quick break? Well, we'll just finish with Vito, and then we'll have a quick break before we go to Eugene, all right? Thanks, Vito. Carry on, please.
For Northwood Wastewater, we've installed a smart automated pump system at the Advantex trial last month. So that is progressing well. I've attached some photos to just show you the panel, as well as what's actually inside the Advantex unit. So it's actually a recirculating bed process. So we will actually sprinkle the wastewater along the cloth material, and actually the healthy bugs that are growing or embedded on the material will actually remove the nutrients, specifically ammonia. So that's the key objective of this trial. So by May next year, we will be able to conclude, and the outcomes, we are aiming to put up a paper on the WIOC platform and potentially the Water New Zealand platform. Yep.
Good work.
I'll briefly touch on Three Waters Network Program, because that is Marcus's portion. But I'd like to use the opportunity to stress that all our network upgrading program is very complex, because it needs to integrate not only our district's growth strategy, but also to ensure that the treatment plant as well as reservoir processing flow rates, sizing, all of that comes into place when we properly design a network renewal or upgrade program. And also to working on a live system that adds another complexity to the whole works. But I'm happy to say that we've had a lot of support from Eugene's team. So Eugene's team, some of the project officers have been working closely with Marcus to drive some of the key network renewal programs found on page 26. So very quickly, priority 1 and 2, the Dannevirke Southern Sewerage Trunk and the Payatua Rising Main final designs have been done, and we are looking into progressing it with the Alliance to get some works out on the ground. In terms of the specific timelines, I do not have the information at this stage, but potentially I will recommend we'll put in some timelines in our next report.
That's what I've got written on the top of this page here.
Yep.
Yeah, no, because that's what we seem to be lacking sometimes with dates, and a few of us have sat in this room for a while now and not heard some completion dates. But yeah, I can appreciate, because after the 1st to the 7th, 27, that will be another interesting period for you going forward, and for all of us in that matter. Yeah, I hope this work's not lost. Hopefully it goes into the bigger picture. No, good work there.
I think that the main intention is also to get the ball rolling for all these key projects sufficiently, so that it won't be disrupted with the transition, because the budgets and the timelines would have already been set, so things will continue in the background even after the transition. Yeah. The similar updates would be for 3 and 4, where detailed designs are completed. And I'll lightly touch on Northwood. So right now we have done some investigations on sections of the pipes and laterals that we will replace out there. And this is the main intention is to renew all those aging pipe work and tobies to make sure that it is set for backflow prevention as well in going into the future. And we are also hoping that replacing some of the aging pipe works, we will prevent the reintroduction of materials such as iron and manganese back into the treated water network. Yeah, because we know that what's coming out from the treatment plant is compliant, but sometimes through the aging pipeworks, there might be reintroduction of some of those metals. Yeah, but as a whole, the water quality is still compliant. We are just trying to minimize the reintroduction and to preserve the high standards of the water.
Could I ask you a technical question? Does affected by flow, like if the taps aren't turned on a lot? Because how many connections in Northwood?
That is something I'll need to find out.
Yeah, because I just like, when you get stagnant water, does the magnesium, maybe the scientists in the room might be able to tell us this one, does it build up? Peter? Thank you.
So, to your question, yes, the flow actually does affect, because for the treatment plant, there will be some residues going through the network, and that is actually expected from all treatment plants around the district and even around the world, because 100% removal is impossible. So what happens is gradually over time you have fine particles that will settle in the reticulation system. So things like a sudden leak or a sudden increase in the usage around the network will actually stir up all these sediments. And that is why it is standard practice for us to do regular flushing of the networks just to prevent that incident from happening. I'll proceed to 4.5, stormwater. Out at Woodville, I think we are aware of Broomfield Road experiencing high water table levels whenever the rain comes in. So according to Marcus's team, they've already had a lot of conversations with Tracy, with local iwis as well on site, just to brainstorm about what we can do to actually eliminate or prevent the problem for Broomfield Road. So some of the works that had done was that the outflow pipe that's on the southern side of Tracy's property, we have done depth measurements just to see whether the elevation actually helps with the conveyance. So there are certain parts of that stream where it's deeper than the river. So what the team is looking at right now is to identify another natural flow path for the water so that it can accelerate the conveyance through there instead, rather than staying around and causing flooding issues. So that's Woodville.
Councillor Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Steve. Just one question. It's sort of part of stormwater, but also part of the projects in the previous one. The work that was done last year for inflow testing and stuff, specifically in Ikitahuna, where we have a large amount of rainwater, stormwater come into the sewage system, which backs up the sewage system in the town. Primarily, I think the cause was Bridge Street from memory. Has there been a project sort of been started towards looking at what work needs to be done there to bring that up to a standard where the inflow can't happen down there? And can it be put into the projects if it's in place?
Yeah, I think for the I&I, Ikitahuna was highlighted as the area which has the highest peaking factor. Woodville and Payatua has been identified to be next, but I believe Eugene might have some updates around the I&I piece, which answers your question.
Yeah, good morning, Good question. There has been a lot of work done in Ekirahuna to reduce that I&I, and we've sourced a solution, or we've investigated two solutions, traditional rehabilitation and relining versus another low-pressure system option for the two worst-performing catchments within Ekirahuna. So we've priced those rehab techniques and we'll be producing a memo and paper to council in the very near future to be able to facilitate that solution.
Councillor Peter.
Thanks, Chair Steve. Vito, just going back to Woodville and the stormwater issue, you say that you're investigating an alternative path for stormwater. From my understanding, there's probably only one, and that's the Mangapapa stream, which would only take half the town, if that, if it was diverted. You must have there must be another option, surely.
Yeah, so the other option that we are looking at in terms of the divergence would be actually starting from Broomfield Road. Instead of heading down south to the Mangatua stream, what we can do is go further west to the piece of land that we have purchased for the Woodville Wastewater Wetlands project. So there is a natural flow path that was identified going through that existing piece of land, and preliminary ideas was how can we expand that natural flow path and then create that alternative route rather than going down south across Tracy's property. So that is the alternative route that we have identified, and that has to be incorporated into our wetland designs as well coming up. So it's definitely things that we are putting together for consideration as a whole. It won't be a standalone piece. Yeah. So, but at this stage, it's just early discussions, and we can't say for sure that that will be the path that we're gonna take.
Councillor Ellison.
Thanks, Chair Steve. Thanks, Vito, for this. I'm just wondering on the further investigations and on Grey and Bowen Streets, are there any properties that are currently being affected by flooding around those areas? And what is the criteria being used to assess the options that are under consideration? Thanks.
Through you, Chair. Unfortunately, I don't have the answer to your question, but what I'll do is I'll take note and flag it out to Marcus and his stormwater team, and hopefully we can address it in the next report. Thank you. Next would be at Payatua. There are three moving parts. First would be work has commenced around Tiramia Street to improve stormwater conveyance. Second would be the works on a key culvert along Huxley Street, and that is also to increase the hydraulic capacity to increase flow through, just to prevent stormwater from ponding within the property area in the areas. The third piece would be investigations along Halls Road, also to include the improvement in stormwater conveyance, as well as just to reduce the hydraulic loading on the western side of town.
Do we know how low that is from the centre of town? Have you ever shot the levels to prevent that hydraulic pinch points?
I might have to ask Marcus whether he has information on that, but I'm pretty sure there are existing information on the levels, because those are key information that will determine the gradient of the stormwater network.
Yeah, because I feel sorry for the people that were, well, it's a comment, It's from the original people that designed that must have thought, couldn't have thought very 40 or 50 or 100 years out. It'll be interesting to see. I know we have got those plans, the plains, the floodplain planning. It might be on there.
Thanks for the question. I've noted, so we'll try to incorporate that into the next report. Lastly would be consenting and compliance. So the previous update, we identified that there were 4 moving parts. One is the Payatua, next Ikituna, Woodville, and Northwood. We were all applying for our water take consents. So an update for Payatua, we have our draft response to Horizon's S92 request for more information and justifications around the water take that we are requesting. We have circulated the draft to Horizons for early conversations. The approach that I'm taking is that instead of officially answering their request and run the risk of them coming back with additional requests and just dragging on the application process, I suggested that we will go through the draft response together, answer any existing questions before I formally put in my answer to Horizons, just to quicken that application process. That's happening the same for Ikituna. For Woodville, we have actually submitted all our inquiries last week. So that's just waiting for Horizons to come back, hopefully with an approval of our water take consents. Northwood, likewise, we have also put in our application. So similar to Woodville, we're just waiting from Horizons. So what's remaining here would be Payatua and Ikituna. We'll have conversations with them tomorrow, make sure that they are satisfied with our draft response. Then we put in a formal reply. And hopefully that gets us to the finishing line.
Mayor Scott.
Thanks very much, Chair Steve. Vito, just a quick question on the water take consents and the, by the sounds of it, the quite large process that we have to go through. Is our request materially different from the last time that the request was received? So within that request, are we asking for a materially larger water take, or is it quite similar? It's just it's hit expiry and we need to go through and renew. I know, there is mechanisms to continue while we're working through that process, but I think it's one I'm interested in the compliance driven process that we have to go through. So
thank you for the question. So what we are requesting actually, it will be either to maintain our existing take limits or slightly lesser, and most of it comes out to be slightly lesser primarily because under the one plan and the minimum usage calculations that Horizons is basing the application on, a lot of the calculations come out to be lower than our existing take limits, and the back and forth therefore focuses on why we can't commit to the lowest calculation that you have done theoretically, but we require a bit more, and that is justified based on our consumption numbers. So we are going back to renegotiate using real facts and information rather than their theoretical calculation of what a town of X number of people, livestock, industrial activities should require. Yeah.
Before we come back to it, could I ask, like Northwood, for example, right? You said you're looking for a consent of 100 cubic metres. What was it?
So Northwood is actually a new application. Previously, we do not need a water take consent if we are taking 50 cubes and below a day. but the data from the last 2 years shows an increasing trend, and we kind of peak at about 80 cubes per day for Northwood during the drier months, and hence we are putting our suggestion to them that we will put in an application for 100 cubes a day based on justified calculations and to
With a
support.
20% buffer. So
Correct.
you're basically saying about growth, which is good for our district. Mayor Scott.
Thanks, Chair Steve. More just a quick comment and thank you for the confirmation. It sounds like an absurdly bureaucratic process, to be frank, and very, very glad that you are working through that, but it is little wonder why some of the costs to our three water delivery goes through the roof with some of these very interesting compliance costs. I'm sure it's a very expensive process to work through when actually there's very, very little change or even a lower reduction. So thank you for working through what I'm sure is quite a painful process.
That's all for my updates.
We look forward to your answers with us next time. Sharon.
Chair Steve, just a quick question, Vito. It is a very bureaucratic nightmare process, I'm sure, but are we having any problems getting the letters of support from iwi? Are they right in behind TDC when it comes to these? So awesome, thank you.
Yeah, to answer your questions, yes, we have had support from our local EVs, both groups, and yeah.
Thank you, Vito. Again, we will look forward to you in the near 2 months when we come back. Now, team, we can either adjourn now or we've got to do a resolution. Thank you. And it's on, where is it? I've been moving around the pages. There we are. Right, 7.1, the Infrastructure Management Report, recommendations, 1.1, 2.1 and 1.1, that the report be from the Group Manager's Operations dated the 21st of May 2026 concerning the Infrastructure and Management Report be received. It was moved by Councillor Peter and seconded by Ellison. Chair, Councillor Ellison, thank you. You happy? All those in favour? Good. Now, team, we can either have adjourn or we could carry on. What do you want to do? Right, we will adjourn we'll be back here at past, please. Thank you. Right, we're back to phase 2, or part 2 of our meeting here this morning, and we're moving into 7.2. Eugene, welcome.
Good morning, Chair Steve, Mayor Scott and councillors. In general, first of all, I'll take the report as read, but in general, the PMO is working hard to progress all their significant high-value projects, whilst also ensuring that TDC is well placed to move these projects into delivery for the next financial year. It is unfortunately taking some extra time, but I'm confident that after these planning phases are complete, that we will conduct some lessons learned within our own TDC teams and our vendors to identify and highlight processes within our planning phases so that we can streamline them in future and reduce some of this planning time. Apart from that, one thing to note significantly, we've had 2 of our project management team promoted to project managers, and that is to align with the work that they've already been carrying out and to recognise qualifications achieved and experience gained through the works and projects that they've already completed. So that was a significant addition to our team. So with that, do I have...
Could I just ask, you're saying your team members have all increased in knowledge and qualification, so that must be a good feeling for the...
It is
So it's a national standard they're all acquiring to?
Yes, well, one of the team members did some extracurricular work and got their Prince 2 project management qualification, which is outstanding. That was Chantel Smith, and Robert Hood has just through previous experience with our team and the many projects he's completed with facilities and the PMO, we thought his experience definitely gave him the ability to perform the function he's already performing, to be perfectly honest. So, yeah.
Make sure you pass on our congratulations from the council, please.
I will do that. I believe in the last council meeting, I was tasked by Councillor Naylor to review the budget forecast for the end of the financial year, and I've tentatively been able to give some sort of percentages around that. At the moment, the budget without the carry forwards from last year, we would be sitting at about 70% complete, and you might and taking away external funding, that would be about 77%. But with the carry forwards, it's looking like 55 to 60%. And that is not counting June, because that data is not available till after the 20th when those invoices get paid. But we've had some significantly large invoices come in and be paid. So I would cautiously like to say we'd be looking at 70 to 75%, which is round about possibly 5% lower than my original projection of 75 to 80. So we're still sitting about there. But in saying that also, the start to the next financial year will be significantly faster than it normally would. July, August is usually considered quite a slow start but because we've got the pre-treatment clarifier work and the reservoir work and the possibly the pool will be kick-starting quite quickly. So most of the carry forwards going through will be cleared reasonably quickly. Do we have any questions?
Yes, I have on page 40, everything's in green, which is the definition of on track. What's the definition of completion and i.e.? Yeah, we talked about it this morning about timeframes. It's just kind of like giving us some certainty in respect to the questions we get every day of the week.
These ones here on page 40 and 41 are the less complex projects, so the smaller value projects. The status is green, that's about risk and budget, more so than timeframes. But with the larger projects, you'll see on the bottom, we do have the timeframes on there and the milestones within that. If you would like, and with each of those larger projects, we operate time schedules. So if you would like, if you want more
those sheets
detail.
are great. Yeah, the ones at the back are great. It's just that, like people ask different questions and they kind of like, I can see what you're saying about what you mentioned, how you're putting it forward. But there's different things that we, I suppose, get asked all the time, looking across this, that we don't have a time.
We could include completion dates within these the smaller ones, just to give you a better indication about where
It's just that we're the voice to the people, you know what I mean? We're just trying to, yeah. Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Chair Steve. Got a few questions. There was one regards to the Ikirahuna Community Hall and the foyer work that was done, the painting and stuff that was, done by a contractor. They left it in a state where there's a lot of overspray, a lot of markings, just where it's been attached to their scaffolding, and that still hasn't been remediated or anything there, so it still looks pretty average. So there's just some comments around that. I know I brought it up with Hamish when we were there. And then on the same page on 41, in regards to the Ikirahuna Cliff Walk, it was a question of what exactly was being done down there, because in the past, I think I've looked it up, it said there was going to be work done, but it was never detailed very well. So is there any information about that?
The overspray, we are aware of that, so we will be working to remedy the overspray sort of thing there. The cliff walk track upgrade, that was sitting with facilities, so I can reach out to the facilities and just see exactly what they have done there. Have we got other questions?
Thank you, Chair. Just one more with the larger projects and the significance of things that are going on. The ERP rollout, the Better Off Funding, or I think that's what it's called as a project. Would that be good to be brought into the PMO stack of projects that are going on? So I'm assuming it has quite a large financial impact.
The ERP has a separate external project manager that's been brought on board for that, and currently they are in a discovery phase with all the department stakeholders, and it's almost a learning and sort of training to find out how much people use it, how much they can use it, understand what they need it for, how all the departments interlink with the current authority. And then once that information is collected, and then they move into the next phase. But there are other projects. HRIS is one of them that also links into that. And we have got payable at the moment and bookable as well, that also all link into that ERP sort of sphere. It's quite a complex project as a whole, especially when you're working with IT and the many different things that.
Yeah, thank you. And having worked in that environment and run those projects like that, I understand the significance and how much change and financial impact that can have. So that's why I thought it would be good to see in this stack of projects that are going on. So from a project's perspective.
Mayor Scott.
Thanks very much, Chair Steve. Just to endorse Councillor Corlett's comments, I think within this committee, I think it is really important that any of those larger scale projects or projects that could be particularly impactful do have a place to be formally reported. So you've listed a few of them within there that are going on. I appreciate they might not be directly within the PMO, but probably something through to Hamish or ELT members. I would be very grateful to see some formal reporting of that coming through for the next meeting.
I do run a 3P corporate catch up with the team running those projects, because I know I do have two of my project managers covering HRIS, bookable and payable. Yep.
This is good work. We're getting more and more out of the team. Keep it up. Carry on, Eugene.
Probably now taking questions on the larger projects there. I'll just go through them one by one. We've got the wastewater wetland development. We are almost complete there.
This is prior to.
Yep, prior to a wetland. So realistically, we've just decommissioned the sediment retention pond, conducted a significant amount of hydro seeding. The earthworks is largely complete. We just need to plant 8,700 plants within that surface flow wetland, and then that part of this project will be complete. And that planting is due to take place June 29, the week of.
And you'll be on budget?
We will be on budget for that, yes.
Taking
Taking into account fuel adjustment factor.
That's why I asked. It's gone up 94% since we last talked.
Yeah, we are receiving FAF from our vendors, which is to be expected. There's a lot of cartage and a lot of large excavators that were in operation out there for the past this whole year, basically. So
I suppose the only good part in that, it has peaked at this stage, and it's coming down a few percentages, but
it is coming down for now.
Yeah, as long as no more bombs.
Yeah.
Carry on, Eugene.
Do you have questions on the wetland?
Yeah, sorry. Any questions on the Paitoa water wastewater water development? Right, we'll go over the page, please.
The treatment plant upgrade itself with the 2 dissolved air flotation and the sludge dewatering facility. The 2 main DEF plants have arrived in place. The pole sheds are fully cleared, and they're wiring that up and tying all the infrastructure together. The irrigation to the vertical flow wetland has been complete, and that is on track for commissioning late July, August, and is on schedule.
So the stuff from the DEF plant, it'll go off into the fields, or will it be trapped off site? It'll be sprayed.
From the DEF plant, we've got an irrigation field on top of what we call a vertical flow wetland, which is basically a very large gravel pit that houses a naturally growing bacteria that removes ammonia, and then from the vertical flow wetland, it goes to the surface flow wetland where we'll be planting the 8,700 plants, and then that removes nitrates. Yeah, so that's at about we're sitting at about 75% complete, I think, for the DEF, and we're on track, on schedule for completion, on time.
Within budget?
Within budget.
I like you. I like you.
Are there any questions for the? No. The Dannevirke impound supply treated reservoir. As alluded to by Vito, we've received the basis of design. We've reviewed that and gone back to the vendor, Concrete Structures, with a few minor changes that they're happy with, and they'll be coming back with those changes and the full concept design, and then move into the 3916 design and build portion of it. So we're on track for delivery of that in the next construction season.
Any questions? Right, move on.
The pre-treatment, we were looking to sign the agreement with the contractor for that in the next 7 to 10 days. Where we will also, there's also a 3916 contract for design and build, and we're looking for civil works to start in December, but the prefabrication and buying of materials pretty much starts immediately. It's rather a large unit and it takes a lot of fabrication, but it's fabricated here in New Zealand to by license. By the vendor has a license to manufacture the American parks and clarifiers, so it'll move quite quickly. So they'll build that, and once the site's ready, it'll just get trucked in and put on site. And that completion for that is, you'll see that it's got new plant commissioning there for April 27. That commissioning will probably go for at least 6 to 12 months, depending on river conditions. The telemetry and SCADA upgrade. This week we are upgrading the Dannevirke Water Treatment Plant, which is the largest plant in the district. Yesterday the brand new electrical cabinet arrived and got powered up with the new PLC. We previously upgraded the water intake SCADA and the water reservoir SCADA, which all took back to the water treatment plant. So in the next tomorrow and Friday, essentially the brains of that plant will be replaced and upgraded to the new system. Next year we'll be looking at ticking off all the outstanding parts for this. So that's all the wastewater pump stations, flow meters, Ekatahuna wastewater, Ekatahuna water treatment, Dannevirke wastewater is a number. But we should be able to, I'll be having a planning meeting later this month to go over the priorities and orders.
Can I just ask you, so everything's, because we always seem to have hardware and software changes over time, which is quite normal. But obviously, you're going to tell me that those two things are the ones that we're going to be using for now into the foreseeable future. We're not going to get separate systems.
We upgraded the SCADA network infrastructure last year to a completely separate from TDC network with its own servers, and it'll all operate independently.
Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Chair Steve. Just a question on the SCADA upgrade. From what I read in some of our non-compliance issues with waters, the SCADA upgrade will answer a lot of those, and that's a big driver for the system.
The SCADA and telemetry upgrade will solve a lot of those. I want to say all of those, but most of those issues. It gives the operators greater visibility. It'll provide one platform. It'll give them greater visibility and control, more time because they won't have to travel out to fix problems. So there'll be fuel savings, there'll be time savings, and there'll be greater control and visibility for plants across the whole district, and that includes the wastewater pump stations, because currently the wastewater pump stations, if a pump stops, they have to travel out and they have to check that pump, and quite often all it is just a restart. But with this we'll be able to restart it remotely. So,
as long as there's not something causing it.
Well, there is that restart first, and then if that doesn't work,
smoke's coming up.
And you can't.
Right, we'll send them in. No, good on you. Carry on, please.
The Paiatua pool, we are just waiting for the final cost number to come back from the vendor to be put into the contract. We should be receiving that this week. Realising that there is some hard date funding, so we should get that this week. I believe our project manager is expecting it possibly today, tomorrow.
So you're not, it says here on your chart that you had them in May, you haven't got them yet.
It does say May.
It does say May. Yeah, so you're going to June.
Yeah, it should be June.
Definitely politics. Right, any questions on the Paiatua pool, please? All right, Eugene. So that, I'll ask one, is it on track from the information you have got?
Or the
Paitoa pool?
It's on, once we receive the cost and we're happy with it, I think everything is in place to move forward very quickly.
Thank you, Eugene. That's your report. Good as go.
Thank you.
We'll see you in 2 months. Right, we need to move. Good on you. Right, let's go find the page. I circled it this time. Here we go. The recommendation is that 7.2, the report from the Senior Projects Manager dated the 21st of May 2026 concerning the portfolio's programs project report be received. It's been moved by Councillor Erina and seconded by Chris. Well, thank you, team. I am now... All those in favour, please? Carried. Right, great work. I'm now going to close the meeting for this third time of this year, since we started. So travel well, travel safe, and thank you very much.